Welcome back. So, perception. Perception forms reality in a lot of cases, and in sports, that is especially true. Anytime that a championship team falls short, anytime that a team aspiring to be a championship team falls short, anytime a team misses the playoffs, whatever it is in whatever sport, there's going to be finger pointing at the end of the year. It might go towards the manager, the coach, the captain of the team. You could be looking at injuries as the excuse for why they didn't make it. And I say excuse not as if it's not a valid excuse. There is such a thing as a valid excuse. This is why when people say, well, you're just making excuses. But there can be valid excuses. So excuses they can be a pain at times because you can use them to justify almost everything. But yeah, in this case, is Jack Eichel the issue with the Vegas Golden Knights? If the perception is that he is, it's hard to change that, isn't it? And the problem is, it's his cap hit. And that's the first problem. The first problem for Jack Eichel is that his cap hit is $10 million a season until 2026. So he's 4 more years after this one at $10 million. And the way he's playing right now, if Vegas at some point said, you know what, this isn't working, maybe we look at flipping him, because he doesn't have trade protection. Well, I don't know any team that's going to necessarily want to take on that cap hit at this point. And the salary cap's been an issue for Vegas really from the beginning. I've been talking about this since their first year, how they didn't have cap space, and I was baffled by that. So while Seattle's had a really rough first year in the NHL, and everybody's taken victory laps on them, well, Vegas and Seattle have won the same number of Stanley Cups so far. So if your measure of success is Stanley Cups, at this point they're in the same spot, right? Is that too simplistic? Sure. So the first year that Eichel played in the NHL, of course, he was the number 2 pick behind Connor McDavid. So there was a lot of discussions and comparisons. Those comparisons didn't last very long. In his first year, he gets 24 goals, 32 assists, 56 points in 81 games. Very respectable first year, right? And for the Sabres, they were 35, 36, and 11. They had a 494 points percentage. So Buffalo got better that first year he's there. He played well. There were flashes of brilliance from him in his rookie year. 2016-2017, he only played 61 games that year. 24 goals, 33 assists, 57 points. And again, definite brilliance in there. To the point where I felt like, if he can go on a run here, he could be one of the best centers in the National Hockey League. The team's record dips a bit, 33, 37, and 12 for a 476 points percentage. So, again, it's only year 2 for Eichel. Sabres are still building. But things get worse his third year. 67 games, 25 goals, 39 assists, 64 points. He's not quite point per game, but he's still playing really well. And he's got this ability. I always talk about, a guy goes beast mode, and that's where he has the puck in the offensive zone. You cannot get it off of his stick. There are players in the league that do it and make it look easy. Looking at Sasha Barkov, looking at Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews at times. They just get that puck on their stick. You're not getting it off there. You have to wait until they get tired. So Eichel does have that ability. We have not seen that with the Vegas Golden Knights as of yet. Now, that year for Buffalo was a rough one. They finished 25, 45, and 12, 378 points percentage. One of the worst points percentages with Eichel there. The following year, 77 games, 28 goals, 54 assists, 82 points. By all standards, Eichel had a very good year. Buffalo didn't. They finished 33, 39, and 10, 463 points percentage. And you can get into that discussion of how much of it is Eichel's fault that Buffalo's not getting better. And again, this comes back to what we're seeing now with the Vegas Golden Knights. How much of what's happened to Vegas is on him. So his last year in Buffalo, he just plays the 21 games. 2 goals, 16 assists, 18 points. And he has a very public feud with the team after the season's done regarding his wanting to get replacement surgery, disc replacement surgery, and them wanting to do fusion instead. And the only answer was to trade him. Buffalo had a miserable year. They finished 15, 34, and 7 and 330 points percentage, in part because they were in the East, which was the NHL's equivalent of the group of death last year. So Buffalo had a miserable record, in large part because they were in a really, really tough division. And so the perception becomes one of, okay, Eichel's, damaged. He only had 2 goals in the 21 games. Clearly wasn't healthy. The Sabres were telling us he was fine when he wasn't. which is odd because we've had that discussion about Buffalo lately, or Vegas lately, where Vegas is, this guy's okay, and then turns out he's not. Robin Lehner, who, of course, knows Eichel from Buffalo. So it's strange. This year in Vegas, 32 games, 12 goals, 10 assists, 22 points. So in the 53 games he's played over the last 2 seasons, he has 40 points. And he's got 14 goals. I don't think that's going to be enough for anybody to be happy with his production. Buffalo this season are 31, 38, and 11. Their points percentage is .456. It's not really out of line with the points percentage they had most of the time he was there. But Buffalo's won 5 of their last 6. Vegas has fallen out of the playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights were picked by many, myself included, to finish the top of the division. That the Pacific was their division. Pacific was seen as weaker, and then you have Vegas, and then you just have everybody else. And that perception's been hard to shake. Vegas has been, struggling for a lot of this year, and yet the commentary on TV has still been, well, Vegas are contenders. Vegas are contenders. And I don't know that they are anymore. But when he made his debut, which was in a game against Colorado, that Vegas loses 2-0. Their record was 28, 17, and 3. If they'd continued to put up points at that rate, they're in the playoffs right now, right? With Eichel, they're 14, 14, and 4. So they're NHL 500, but they've won less than half their games. So that's the key thing. They've won less than half their games. They had won more than half before he joins the team. So whether it's on him, whether it's not, the perception's going to be that it's on him. Now, Vegas has been struggling, and they've lost that spot to Dallas at this point. They lost in the shootout last night against Dallas. Over the last 5 games that Eichel's played, he has 1 assist, and he's a -3. I've talked about plus-minus. I think it works. If you're looking at it, in this case, one player, and he's played a lot of time. And before that, he had a 6-game point streak where he had 5 goals and 2 assists. So Eichel's had some good streaks here and there. But what's interesting is if you take those 7 points out, then he has 15 points in the other 26 games that he's played. So it's been a hot and cold season for him. And they need more. The ice time he's had over the last 2 games that did go through the full overtime and into shootouts. He played 24 minutes and 14 seconds against Dallas last night. He played 23 minutes and 12 seconds against San Jose in the previous game. He's playing a ton. And this, again, is where you want to see more than 1 point in his last 5 games. They're relying on him. They need him. Now, there's other factors with the Vegas Golden Knights and why they've fallen apart. But again, this is going to be your lightning rod, especially when we look at the trade. This trade was only made on November 4th. And almost everybody at this point has said Buffalo wins this trade. We don't even know what the other 2 pieces are yet. So he was traded with a 2023 or 2024 third-round pick. There's conditions. In exchange for Alex Tuch. Tuch, so far in Buffalo, 48 games, 12 goals, 26 assists, 38 points. He's been fantastic. He has revitalized their offense. Alex Tuch was a very dangerous player for Vegas. They would do the home run pass, right? You have your stretch pass at center ice. Tuch was always a recipient for that. At least once per game, you would see Tuch pull off some dynamic move at center ice. And so that's going to leave a team that's playing against Vegas with Tuch in the lineup having to worry about that when he's on the ice and thinking, all right, so we've got the offensive, structure here and we're trying to get the goal, but we got to watch Tuch because he's gone if he gets the puck going the other way. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. It was a different look, right? His cap hit is $4.75 million until 2026. Is that high for Tuch? Maybe a little. I mean, considering how Tuch, was produced this year, I would think $4.75 million. But if you look at it all in relation, they're paying him less than half the money that Jack Eichel is making in Las Vegas, and the production has been better from Tuch in Buffalo. Then you factor in Peyton Krebs, rookie player, young player, 55 games altogether played this year with 7 goals, 15 assists. He had no points in his games in Vegas. In Buffalo, 49 games for those 7 goals, 15 assists, 22 points. Krebs has been excellent. And so this is the problem. You've got 2 players, and for Krebs, he's signed to a contract for $863,000 until 2024. You've got players playing for Buffalo, playing prominent roles, who are a big part of the reason why the team's won 5 of their last 6. and why there's optimism in Buffalo for the first time since it's been a long time. I'm going to say 2011. I'm going to say 2011 is the last time I remember there being optimism in Buffalo surrounding the team's future and what might happen. So, yeah, and I haven't heard a lot of slagging of the Pagulas this year because it feels like Buffalo might be headed in the right direction. And, of course, then there's the additional parts to the trade. A first-round pick this year or next year. That's going to be, what, you got to think probably 16th, 15th, 16th. And then you've got, and that's if they miss the playoffs, which they very likely do. And then there's a second-round pick in 2023 or 2024. So that's going to be a decent draft pick. A very good chance that that second rounder at least becomes an NHL player on some level. And that first round pick has a good chance of becoming an NHL player too. And then there's the possibility that Buffalo moves one of those picks in order to get another asset back or multiple assets. So there are reasons to look at this trade and say, wow, Vegas got fleeced. Not the least of which is they added $5 million in cap hit and they got less production for it. So the combination of Krebs and Tuck has been 60 points worth in Buffalo, and Eichel in his 32 games has produced 22 points. So again, this is the perception, right? Vegas is 13th in goals for in the league, and they're 14th in goals against. They've been mediocre, right? Their power play, 18.18%. League average is 20.61%. One might expect that Jack Eichel, being a first-line center, would turn that power play around. That has not happened. I think he's got 8 power play points out of his 22 points. The power play for Vegas has been on again, off again, but it's usually off, right? Their penalty kill has also been a concern, 77.83%. The league average, 79.39%. So they're below average in their special teams on both sides of it. Their shooting percentage, 9.2%. The league average is 9.8%. So either they're taking poor quality shots or they have some really poor puck luck. Either way, Vegas is not getting the puck to go in the net. Their save percentage, on average, 901. The league average is 902. And 5-on-5, the save percentage of their goaltenders is lower than it is for other teams in the league. It's lower than the league average. And so there's a lot to why Vegas has struggled. And you can get into all the injuries as well. I don't think Stone's been healthy. I've been vocal with that. But when we look at their cap situation going forward, it's going to be interesting because, again, Eichel's got that cap hit of $10 million until 2026. William Karlsson, 65 games, 11 goals, 22 assists, 33 points. $5.9 million cap hit until 2027. At the time that contract signed, it looks good. It does. It looks really good. But Karlsson's been fighting it this year. It may just be a down year. Maybe he bounces back next year. But does he have a 30-goal season in him, or is it going to be 20? And if he's a 20-goal scorer, that $5.9 million suddenly looks a bit high. I say that even though Karlsson's very good defensively. I like Karlsson's game a lot. But the scoring just isn't what it was, right? And then you've got Mark Stone. 35 games, 8 goals, 21 assists, 29 points. His cap hits $9.5 million until 2027. My concern with Stone is simple. So if Stone isn't 100% right now, one thing I always worry about with a player playing through injury is that something that can cause that injury not to heal up as well during the offseason as it should because you didn't rest it, maybe didn't heal up enough. You might risk a further agitation of said injury, and it might become more of a chronic thing where you're dealing with it year after year. So for Stone, that $9.5 million cap hit till 2027 suddenly becomes problematic if he's not 100% come October, right? Then there's Alec Martinez, 24 games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, $5.25 million cap hit till 2024. So he's missed a lot of games. It's a pretty high cap hit considering the amount of games missed and all that. And what it means is you got $10 million here, $9.5 here, another $10 million there. That's about $30 million of their cap space between Eichel, Karlsson, Stone, and Martinez. And while the cap's going to go up next year, it's not going to go up that much. But this is why, they tried to dump off Dodonov at the deadline. This is why they had to try that. Whereas if they didn't have Eichel, they wouldn't have had to try to dump off Dodonov. And, say that 5 times really fast, and they would still have Tuck. They'd have Tuck in the lineup. They would also have Krebs in the lineup. And they'd be saving $5 million by not having acquired Jack Eichel. if you add Tuck to this lineup for the 48 games he's played in Buffalo, you add those 48 games to Vegas, I would argue they're probably above the playoff line. Because again, with Tuck, he has an ability to turn a game around. And he was the one forward that when Vegas was playing Vancouver in the bubble playoffs in 2020, I was terrified of Tuck. He was the one that I was like, just don't let, he's on a break again. Guys have got to figure this out because he is that dangerous. And we've seen in Buffalo, he's revitalized that team. They now have a really good first line, and he's on it. It's Tuck, Thompson, Skinner, right? So, yeah, overall, this trade has not worked out well for Vegas. And so as a result, people will point the finger at Jack Eichel. And I get it. I would imagine Eichel does as well. Because again, you look at the record with Eichel in the lineup, you look at the record before he got there, people are going to say, well, that's on Eichel. And they're not going to focus as much on the injuries. They're not going to focus as much on the fact that every statistical category for Vegas either has them as middle of the pack or a little below the middle of the pack. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I think this team changed its identity quite a bit. And I don't know if the team that they've got put together right now is made up of championship caliber players. I've said before, you had before the salary cap era, teams trying to buy a Stanley Cup. And sometimes it worked. You know, Detroit had a very expensive roster in 2002 overall. But there were times that it didn't work. Toronto, the Rangers, would go out and spend tons of money, and they never quite got over the hump, right? And I know the Rangers did it in '94. I'm talking about the late '90s, early 2000s Rangers, and it just, this is what can happen. You're chasing that next piece, and it can throw off your team's chemistry, which I think is important. And so it's a matter of finding that chemistry again and figuring it out. Once the season's officially done, of course, I'll be doing my series where I look at teams that missed the playoffs and why. And with Vegas, probably going to be an interesting video in that there are a number of reasons that things fall apart, but how much of it's on Eichel. So if you're a Vegas fan, let me know in the comment section below how you felt about the team, how you feel about them next year, and if management came out and said, you know what, we're not going to make big changes because we had a lot of injuries. We think when we're healthy, we can compete with anybody. Is that good enough, or do you want to see big changes? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yeah, I thought this would be interesting to look at because, again, I'm starting to see the Eichel conversation, and it's fascinating to me because we've been having this the whole time the channel's existed. So it continues. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.